Okay, so we have everything working, and let's get rid of all these prints here because we no longer need them. Now, what is that we want to do? Again, we're going to be able to search for a term, a query here, a book, and then at the bottom we're going to have a list, preferably horizontally, showing the books that we get. Okay, so that means then once we get these books, because we're fetching those books and we can access them here. Now, the thought process here has to change a little bit, because you would think I could just go ahead and pass in, for instance, a variable here and get those books, because this returns those books, right? That means that we need, once we get these books, because these are returned here, which actually could be returned as this value here, because that's going to be the list of books. But how do we then get those books and pass them onto, let's say, a widget so that it creates, in this case, could be a list widget to create those books? That is the idea. So what we're going to do here is instead of this for loop, because that was just for testing to see things that are working, right? I'm going to get rid of the return as well. Inside here, what I'm going to do here is we are going to call a list of books, okay, which is going to be a list that we haven't created yet. And we're going to set it to hold the value, which is going to be a list of books. What this is really is the moment we get those books inside here, because remember this is a future, so it goes ahead and gets the book, and then there's a promise here in this thing to say, okay, we promise that we're going to get something. Once we get that something, we're going to put that something into a new list of books. Now, this list of books has to be somewhere outside, okay, at the class level, just like this, because we want to make sure that we can access the list of books whenever we want, so that we can then create a list and so forth. So really here, I can say something like list of books, or this list of books, right? And it's going to be an empty array to start with, empty list. So now we go back to where this list of book is being called. The moment this is called, the search method, and then the await fetch books is called. Inside of our promise, the then method here, we're going to pull the list of books and put in that, set up the list of books in this case, so that we can use it anywhere else we want. So this means then we go back up to tree here in our scaffold. We have our app bar, and then we have that column, we have that form. So underneath this form, where we finish with this container, still inside, of course, of this children column there, let's go ahead and put a sized box, so to have some sort of gap, right? Size box, say height of about 12. And here, let's go ahead and create a list view real quick, okay? And this list view, I'm going to use the scroll direction to say I want this to be accessed at horizontal, to be left to right instead of vertical. And then I'm going to pass in its children. Let's go ahead and just pass, let's just pass a container. And in this container, we're going to have a child. Let's just add a card for now, so we can see what we can add there. And for this child, I'm going to say list tile. And for the title, we're just going to go ahead and pass our list of objects, okay, list of books, that is. And for now, I'm just going to go ahead and get the first item. It's going to be now an object, right? If we get the first item of this list, it's going to be a book object. And let's get author like that. This has to be inside of a text, obviously. So it's text. And let's close it down like that. Then we have this problem here, which says index out of range, no indices are valid. So what is really happening here? Let's go back to our terminal here and check something out. Let's go to terminal, console, like that. Okay, this is a problem. Well, the reason why it says here that we are inside of book search 50, that's the line, it's our main screen.dart. Let's go to book search, line 50. It says list books 0. This makes no sense because at this point, this book hasn't really gotten anything. It makes sense because the only thing that happens here is that we created this list of books and it's empty. Will continue being empty until we search, meaning until this search is called, meaning also until this onSubmit is called. So it makes sense that this won't work at this point because, well, if we want to go and invoke the list of books, a first book inside of this list to get the object and get the author, well, the list of book has to be not empty. It makes sense. So how do we then solve this problem here? Well, we need to think a little bit. Well, the idea is that wherever we hit the search there, this happened, and then we call the fetch button, fetch books. Instead of having like this, we need to actually set a state where list of books then is going to be equal to this value, which means we're going to be transferring this list of books into list of books variable that we created, right? That way we don't run into this problem, because this whole class here is just a stateless widget, which means it doesn't have a state. It doesn't care about the state, but it needs to care about the state, especially in this case. Because this list, in this case here, as you see, it's always going to be empty because it's not empty, not until we actually are able to add something and then tap and then hit enter, and then it's going to be populated. That's not going to happen because the moment this run, it goes and reads this and says there is no list of books that contains something, and how can I access something that doesn't exist? So that means then we need to change, first of all, this whole class here from stateless to stateful. So if I say command convert then to stateful, click, and now it is indeed stateful. Now we need to also think about something here. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to call the init state method as such, which will allow us to init the state of this entire class. What we want to do here is that every time that we need to initialize this state of this class, we're going to actually initialize our search text, our search controller. I'm going to say text editing controller like this. Every time that this is called again, we want to initialize the text editing controller as if it were new. We're going to have an issue here because search text controller is a final. That's why we need to get rid of that. That way we are able to initialize it inside here. And there's something else we need to do. If you hover over, it says here, if you can see this method overrides a method annotated as must call super. So we need to call super before anything. So I'm going to say super.init. In fact, I think it was there, but I deleted it accidentally. And there we go. So now we have part of the problem solved. Now, we are initializing the state here. Now we need to set the state. Where do we set the state? Well, we set the state when we are fetching our books. So we are going to enclose this whole piece of code here inside of a set state. So set state as such, and then I'm going to cut all of this and put it all there. All right, so making progress. I'm going to save that. Now we need to do something else, because now that at this point we're hoping that the list of books is going to have something, as when we hit the search or enter and then search is called, we fetch the books and we get all the books, right? Hover over, this is a list of books, and we put in our list of books. Great. Now, the place where we are actually showing it, which is here, we need to do something else, because at this point here, this is not going to help us whatsoever. We need to put some sort of a statement to make sure that this is only called if indeed there is such a thing as a list of books, or at least if it's not empty. And how do we do that? Well, we can come here and put a statement here, right? I'm going to say list of books. If it's not equal to null, or list of books not empty is not empty. If that's the case, only then are we going to run this code, which is to return a list view. Well, in the other case, we're going to say center child. We're just going to return a text that says no books found. It's actually empty like this because we are doing all that work inside here. Okay. And the other thing we need to do here, instead of or, let's say and. We want to make sure that this only shows if we have something in the list of books and the list of books is not null. Go back here and voila, you can see right away, the moment we get in, it says no books found. Because it makes sense, the list of books is indeed empty. So if it's empty, it's going to go ahead and say no books found. Very good. So that's fine. Now let's test it out. So if I come here and say something like this, Flutter development, hit enter, let's see what's going to happen. All right, looks like we have a lot of issues here, physical and very painful. But what's really happening here? It looks like we're missing something. Let's open our terminal again, because this is our helper. And all right, oh geez, we got a lot of issues here. Now, I know this problem here. The problem here is that we are using a list view. We are using the list view wrong. Meaning, let's get rid of this. This means, let's go ahead and go back, which gives us all of this wonderful information. It says that although this node is not marked as needing layout, its size is not set. That's because we're putting this list view on its own, and we should not do that, right? Usually a list view you want to put around an expanded widget, because the expanded widget or any other widget that will allow to flex the view in which this list view is going to be showing its children, it has to be enclosed into something like that, because this view could be larger, smaller, and it needs to be controlled. So what we want to do is click on that, say command period, and we're going to wrap it with an expanded. So I'm going to say expanded as such. Okay, let's go ahead and save. Now, this will also give us some issues here, and I'm going to save ourselves from a lot of issues, and I'm going to show you exactly how to restructure this so that we don't run into issues, right? Because we're passing a container and then a card. This is not good. Okay, so let's restructure this real quick. So we have expanded to make sure our list view can actually be shown. And instead of using a list view like this, I'm going to change all of this. Let me just delete all of this. And I'm going to use a list view builder, so we can start seeing things right away. List view, use the builder as such. Okay, and I'm going to say control space so that we can get options here. So we want the second option with context, index, and function body like this. All right, so we know also that we need to pass in our builder here, we need to pass the item count. So the item count is going to be the list. So it's a list of books and dot length. So that way our list view builder will know exactly how many items to be counted so that they can be used here. All right, and we have the context in index. The index is going to control each item that we have in our list of books, in this case, each book. We're going to return, for now, just say return card as such. And inside of this card, we're going to pass a list tile, something like this. List, let's say child first, then list, and the list tile has title, toll. And I'm going to pass a text here. Now, because we're inside of list view builder, I have, of course, the count, item count, the length of our list of books, and I have the index. That means then I can use that to my advantage. I can say list of books like that and pass in the index. It will know exactly at what index we are, and I can say dot because this will represent an actual book, right? We go to the list, get the first or second or third or 10th index depending on the length of our books list, right? And then I can just go ahead and say, let's say I want author, right? And then I can continue, say put subtitle here. I'm going to say text again. Let's say list of, and pass in the index. And then let's say description. Why not? Let's forget the semicolon there. And there we have it. Okay, so this will just at least hopefully show us all of the items that we have searched and retrieved. Go to main, do the same thing, just to make sure we get logged in. Okay, so there's nothing there. I'm gonna say psychology, hit enter, and voila. Look at this. We have all of this information. And it works because now it also says not available, for instance, for the description for certain of these, for certain books that do not have descriptions. All right, very good. Okay, so it is indeed working, but obviously this is not what we want. What we want to make sure that happens is that this information actually looks more like this. And so now it's easy for us to do so because we have the infrastructure. We understand that things are happening, meaning we are able to fetch information, books in that case. So now it's just a matter of us to create this structure, card structure, so that we can then pass in all of the information about the book. But at least we see that this is indeed working. Now, here's what I want to do. Seeing this, what I want you to do is to create a structure. Try to create a structure such as this. Okay. Notice you can see this is going to be a card that contains an image and then a title and then a subtitle as such. So the title of the book and the subtitle is going to be the author name. Okay, pause this video. Before you go to the next videos, I'd like you to spend some time trying to figure out how can you create such a structure, something like this. Also remember, this is going to be scrollable horizontally, not vertically. That's important. Okay, try to figure out and see how you can do that.